he was a very wealthy man, but he had to write home for money and ask his kids to send money because this was going to be an expensive job. Well, of course, they made a face like that.
And welcome again. Welcome back to a new episode of Gustavo's World, where we're here with Julie and we're going to talk about the history of Miami Beach. The video is about to start. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications. There we go! So Julie, here we are in a little area that might have resembled how Miami Beach might have looked at one point.
Well, as little as 200 years ago, Miami Beach was nothing more than a jungle-covered barrier island. Rats, rabbits, swamp water crocodiles, hordes and swarms of mosquitoes and biting flies, very sharp palmetto plants with razor-like blade leaves, and mangroves with really thick, knotted roots.
And then, was any people living here?
We have no evidence of any human settlements here, but I suspect it was very fertile hunting grounds, fishing and hunting for the Tequestas, a native population that lived nearby.
I see an island there, so can you tell us more about that?
Well, we're here in Miami Beach, and Miami Beach is part of a string of sandbars, islands, and peninsulas that kind of form a necklace around the coast of Southeast Florida.
Okay.
That island over there is Fisher Island, and that actually was originally attached here, right where we're standing, to this part of Miami Beach. It was part of Miami Beach. It was severed around 1903 when the Army Corps of Engineers first dug this channel to make a port towards the city.
So are you trying to tell me that that piece of water there, all the way to the ocean, all the way to Miami, is man-made?
Yes.
So Julie, that means that the island over there, so this part was going all the way there. So
Right.
that was the southernmost tip of the island. And now this is the southernmost tip of the island because it was cut off, right?
Right.
Okay.
All of these islands were likely connected at one time or another. They were separated by storms, water activity, human intervention like digging a canal.
Right.
So yes, Fisher Island was attached. We think that possibly even Key Biscayne was attached at some time. But once this was dug, this became the southern tip of Miami Beach. So the ferry came twice a day, bringing visitors from the city to this little southern tip now that had been turned into a bathing casino. And by the way, the term casino was referred to places where they went to sunbathe. It had nothing to do with gambling back in those days. So there was a little plot of sand, there was a wooden structure, and a pier, and they called it Fairyland. In fact, back in those days, Biscayne Bay was so shallow. It was only a few feet deep, and it was covered with quite a bit of seagrass. It was so shallow that the owner of the trading post at the mouth of the Miami River, William Brickell, used to put his pigs on very shallow boats and float them across the bay here to Miami Beach so they could graze on all the jungle plants that were growing here at the time. The beautiful man-made Miami Beach beach. What surprises so many people as they learn about the history of Miami Beach is that all of this activity and all these wonderful tourist amenities that you see really are all the result of human development. The only two things that were here before humans started building are the sky and the ocean.
That's it. Everything else was man-made.
Absolutely.
And then this was like an island or?
Miami Beach is part of a peninsula and string of islands that come down the southeast coast of Florida all the way to the Keys. And for the most part, in the early days of our history, they were just jungle-covered, uninhabited swampland.
Wow.
And it wasn't until a few farmers actually came here, and their vision was coconut farming.
As we all know, Miami Beach is known for having so many palm trees. That's all we have in postcards and everything, and coconuts. But the question is, are these trees native from the Florida area?
No. Coconuts are not native to this area. No one has any idea where those palm trees with the coconuts came from. It would be very rare for coconuts to land washed up on the shore and root. Somebody planted them. They have no idea who. There's no evidence of any settlements here. But some way, somehow, there was a small group of coconut palms growing on the shore that Charles Lum saw. And he had money from the gold rush. He wanted to do some investments, and he decided to go to New Jersey, get a group of farmers to give him money, and then he came down here and bought up a bunch of land from the American government at about 25 cents an acre and set up coconut farming.
Okay.
So he thought he could get rich. Coconuts were exotic at the time. The husks were very valuable for nets. They used them for rope and nets. And so it made sense. The problem was, again, he didn't think it through. Miami Beach was a swampy, jungle-covered island. Rats, rabbits, snakes, alligators, turkey vultures, all were living here. And they imported 40,000 coconuts from the Caribbean, Trinidad. They sunk them into the swampy ground, the nuts, and went back to New Jersey to wait a few years for the nuts to grow and produce fruit. Well, about 5 years into the project, they came back to see what they had, and what do you think they found?
I don't know.
Nada. Nothing.
Wow.
Because they hadn't thought it through. They sunk them into the swampy ground, not thinking that the rats and the rabbits and the deer would eat whatever grew. They didn't pay any attention to the swarms and swarms of black biting flies and mosquitoes. So every time they sent the workers to check on the farm, what happened? They'd all run screaming from the flies and the mosquitoes. So that was basically what caused the entire operation to fail.
Okay.
They just didn't think it through. And that was when John Collins, who had invested thousands of dollars in these farms, said, wait a minute, I'm not ready to lose my fortune because you made bad choices.
Yes.
This is the Collins Canal. Well, John Collins was one of those early farmers from the 1800s. He was a wealthy horticulturist from the New Jersey area, and he had invested thousands of dollars in those early coconut plantations from the 1800s. And when they failed, he was very upset and did not want to accept defeat. So he came down and he made a number of changes. He got rid of the coconut idea. He substituted mangoes and alligator pears. Do you know what an alligator pear is?
Okay, an alligator pear is what today we know as a avocado, palta. I don't know, there's so many names for it.
So many names,
yes,
but familiar to so many.
Yes.
And within a short amount of time, he had a very large and extremely successful avocado farm here in the southern part of Miami Beach. And it was slow and expensive to hire boats to take them across Biscayne Bay to the little railroad in Miami so that they could go to the New York market. They were very valuable and they were selling for a lot of money in New York. And he decided instead of paying other people to barge them over there, he would do it himself. He decided he would dig a canal, this canal. the funny part of the story is he was a very wealthy man. And of course, his entire family was very wealthy.
Yes.
But he had to write home for money and ask his kids to send money because this was going to be an expensive job. Well, of course, they made a face like that and they said, oh, there goes our inheritance. Dad is gone crazy. So down came the son-in-law, Thomas Pancoast. Thomas Pancoast was a young visionary and he had ideas. He came, he saw all this tropical beauty and he thought, maybe there's something here besides farming. So he went to his father-in-law and said, Dad, this is kind of an old-fashioned idea. I think we need something more modern, something like a bridge so that people could come and go without a boat. But Dad was determined. Mr. Collins said, no, I want the canal. So they agreed to do both.
Oh, great.
And this is the canal. The canal was dug so that the fruit could be put on low flat barges and then sailed right out directly to the bay and across.
So we're here in a park, which is very strange because there's a park in between the beach and the city. So what is this about?
Well, it's an interesting observation because it is rather unusual, but it's very significant in Miami Beach history. This park is named Lummus Park, and that's after our first mayor, John Lummus, who was elected in 1915 when Miami first incorporated. There were 33 registered voters here at the time.
33?
Yes, we were a booming metropolis. And they elected him as their first mayor, and he owned this land. This land was all part of that abandoned, failed coconut plantation.
Okay.
And he decided to gift it to the city of Miami Beach with one condition, and that was that it would be forever city-managed recreational space and never privately developed, which is why you see that the little hotels have direct ocean view, and it's here for the entire city and all our guests to enjoy. And I think if he had not done that, we would have big high-rises that would block the entire beach. Isn't it a beautiful morning to be on Miami Beach?
Yes, and I love being sitting in this wall, which goes all the way, all Ocean Drive.
Yeah, this wall is very popular with people like us who want to sit and perch and watch the world go by. But the true story of this wall is it's quite old. It was built in the early 1900s to hold back the ocean before the beach was made. Because remember, the beach and the dunes are human creations. The water came all the way up, almost as far as the hotels. And this was built to hold it back during those early years of development.
Wow.
This rough and tumble stone that it is made of is called keystone.
Okay.
It is 40,000-year-old fossilized oolitic limestone. And oolitic limestone is formed all over the world where the shore meets the sea. It's sand, silt, dead sea life like fish bones and shells, etc. Over thousands of years, it hardens into this very tough, durable stone. Here in Miami Beach, we call it keystone because it makes up the bedrock of the entire peninsula, Miami Beach, and all the islands through the Keys down to Key West.
Oh, wow.
And they quarried it in Key West, thus the name Keystone. And they used it.
Oh, that's why it's called.
Yeah, and they used it during that early development boom because it was locally available, very inexpensive, and incredibly durable. Right behind us, there's lots of famous people that go there, is Brown's Hotel. Now it is known as the home of Prime 112, a very posh, expensive restaurant popular with celebrities. But that little building was the very first hotel ever built in Miami Beach. It went up in 1915, and there she still is.
We are in front of one of our favorite restaurants, Joe Stone Crab. Tell us more about it.
Joe Stone Crab is a landmark restaurant here in Miami Beach. It's the first restaurant ever opened in Miami Beach. Joe and Jenny Weiss opened it in 1913. And the interesting thing is, stone crabs weren't even on the menu until several years later.
Oh, wow.
When it first opened, it was just a small little fish sandwich shack to serve the people at the bathing casino and the pier.